Hey, I am Jess, and I'm obsessed with all things nutrition, science, and helping you navigate this information while maintaining a deep sense of peace and empowerment in your body. I'm a registered dietitian who started out with an eating disorder and then fell in love with learning about how God intricately designed our bodies to be resilient and so much more than superficially beautiful. I am now a mama who loves to be healthy, not because of how it makes me look, but because of how it has transformed the energy I can give to my family, my friends, and you. On this show, we hit on real talk around the latest nutrition science and body image resiliency, all while balancing it between grit and grace. Think of this as your weekly audio coffee to encourage your empowered eating journey. This is the Fuel Her Awesome podcast. Hey friend, I'm so excited you're here. This is such a special episode. We're rolling into the holidays and getting really into them now. Thanksgiving is coming up. We have Christmas. There is food everywhere. And I think this is when we really start to play that list and that narrative in our head, like, oh, it's the holidays. I'm going to go offline. I'm just going to have all this and then I'm going to not have it. And that pendulum swing really starts to gain momentum in this week going into all the way through into the new year. And so one of the tools I'm really excited to share with you today is the power of self-awareness. And I'm talking with Beth McCord. Guys, she is the Enneagram guru. She's amazing. And we're going to talk about how understanding the Enneagram, which is your personality type, your core drive for why you do what you do, whether that's for something beautiful, something self-sabotaging, whatever it is behind what you're doing, we need to understand it so that we can actually make changes and remain present and act out and play out in the way that we are doing things for ourselves and taking care of ourselves, and that we don't repeat some of those old patterns this holiday season. Guys, this is such a great interview. If you are new to the Enneagram, that's okay. We're going to break it down for you. We're not assuming anyone knows about the Enneagram. Beth's going to break it down. We have tons of resources. Beth has tons of free resources available to you on YouTube. She has a free Enneagram assessment if you are totally new and don't know what your type is. We'll link all of that in the show notes. But just some additional background on her. Guys, she is a speaker, author, coach, and teacher. She's been doing this for over 20 years. And I was fortunate enough to meet her a few weeks back at a conference I was at. She has written 12 Enneagram books, 12 books. How incredible is that? Her most recent one is the Enneagram for Moms, which is such a great read if you are a mama out there. But she has other ones for folks that aren't moms, like Becoming Us. That was actually my first Enneagram book I ever read. It's so good. She also has another one called More Than Your Number. So you are definitely going to leave this episode wanting more, and you will find all that in the show notes. But as for today, we're just going to dive into getting a better understanding of why we do what we do so that we can be equipped as we go into the holiday season, because I want this year to be different for you. We do not have to repeat old patterns. And guess what? You can end 2024 feeling empowered so that you start 2025 from a solid space. Like, my goal for you guys is that we go into the next year ready, looking forward to it, optimistic, excited for what's ahead, and not stuck in that repeated self-sabotaging behavior that makes us feel like we have to make up for things in 2025. No, we're not here for that. All right, sisters, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let's go ahead and dive in. Beth, I am so excited you're here on the Fuel Her Awesome show today. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, can't wait. This is going to be so much fun to dive in.
I am so excited to dive into the Enneagram. You know, I really started realizing this was a crucial piece of the puzzle when actually you wrote your first Enneagram book is the first. No, that wasn't your first, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Becoming Us was our first book.
Okay. Well, it was the first Enneagram book I read. And I remember reading it. It was called Becoming Us, and I remember reading it thinking, I have got to figure out how to apply this to the folks I work with, because so much of the obstacles we face with food, we have to consider our personality quirks and how we show up in the world. And it was really helpful to me to understand this part of the puzzle. So I'm really excited to pick your brain on the Enneagram today and how it might impact our eating patterns and our habits and our food story. But before we dive in, just in case anyone doesn't know what the Enneagram is, can you give us like a crash course on the
Yeah.
Enneagram?
Yeah, sure. So the Enneagram is a personality tool that helps you to understand why you think, feel, and behave. So a lot of personality tools out there are telling you what you do. This is getting into the core motivations of why you do what you do. But it also takes it a little further. So once you find your main type, and there's 9 different Enneagram types, or you can say 9 different ways of seeing the world. So, like, we each have glasses on, right?
Mhm.
And the lens through which we see is, let's say, quote unquote, a different color. And so we think we're all seeing the same world, but we're actually seeing it and reacting to it differently.
Mhm.
Um, and when we actually are living, through our perspective, our personality type, we can do it both in healthy, average, and unhealthy ways, kind of anywhere on that spectrum. And that's what's so cool about the Enneagram is it's helping us to map out where we are. So like a GPS, like where's your current location? And so that's our main Enneagram type, but also what's our healthiest destination?
Mm.
Well, that's awesome. And we can kind of head in that direction. But often, as we find, is that while we're driving down this highway of life, trying to be the best version of who we are, we find ourselves in a common pitfall or a ditch on the side of the road. And we kind of throw up our hands and we want to pull our hair out and go, how did I get here again? Haven't I learned? Well, the Enneagram is great because it's going to say, oh, yeah, I know your patterns. And you're going to fall into this common pitfall many, many times unless you put down a rumble strip on the highway that alerts you when you start to veer off course. And so that's how I kind of teach people like, hey, you're going to naturally do this thing that you think works for you, but ultimately you'll see that it doesn't.
Mm.
And so,
Mhm.
what if you can kind of alert yourself as you're heading in that direction and stop yourself like we do on the highway? Like, oh, I heard the rumble strip. I need to get back onto the actual highway and not keep going in that direction. Because if I keep going, we all know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, I'll give an example for myself. So, I'm a type 9, the peaceful accommodator. I fear conflict, tension of any kind. And so I just want peace and harmony. So what I'll do is I'll kind of forget myself and merge with others and be a people pleaser, go along to get along. And at the worst, really can kind of become a doormat or catatonic, just kind
Mhm.
of barely here in life, right? I may be physically here, but I'm really not here. Well, so what I've learned is okay, so when I start to feel the fear of tension or conflict, instead of just kind of reacting, which would be me thinking, okay, well, what does someone need? How can I make them happy? I can go, hold on. Okay, that is definitely true that's going on, or it may not be true. I need to be curious. Yes, so and so is upset, but does that warrant me to actually jump right now and
Mhm.
people please and accommodate? Or can I ask curious questions? Or maybe this isn't even my responsibility. And so that gives us time to be mindful, to pause, and to then reorient our heart into a healthier direction. So that's why the Enneagram is so powerful because, again, it's getting to the why you think, feel, and behave, and then on what level of health so that you can always and hopefully stay more on a healthy trajectory.
That's so good. And that's actually why I like it more than other personality tests because it tells you those levels. Like, are you a healthy level, average, or unhealthy? I'm curious, why have you chosen this specific personality test as your go-to and what you've dedicated your career to as opposed to some of the other ones?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I really enjoy Myers-Briggs, Strength Finders, you name it. They're all kind of fun. They give
Hmm.
you different insights from different vantage points. But I see the Enneagram as being the foundation
Mm.
to not only all of those other resources, but maybe even counseling or other things that I'm learning and like what we're going to talk about today, which is health and eating.
Hmm.
And because it's going to help us to know why we get into certain patterns. And these can be healthy patterns all the way to unhealthy patterns. So it's not like we're just talking about the unhealthy. The whole goal is to see the healthy patterns that we can live out that is
Mm.
true to who we are, not trying to become someone else. But the Enneagram is a non judgmental friend. It is going to tell you like it is,
Oh my
all the
gosh.
way from you're the best at these areas to you really struggle in these categories when you're not healthy.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say a non-judgmental friend is because oftentimes people come to the Enneagram and their eyes and heart beeline to the worst parts of their personality type. And then
Mhm.
they feel shame and guilt and they want to isolate and ignore or yeah, ignore people and go away. But that's actually not what we're wanting. So if the Enneagram is a non-judgmental friend who is letting you know the truth, that gives us the ability to go, yeah, that's not fun, but at least I have it from a source that I'm not feeling shamed or blamed or belittled, but I'm getting it from a source that I can then see at the same time what is a healthy path for me?
Mhm.
And am I willing to do the work to actually get there? And as we all know, growth is hard, but it is possible. And then we can have a more fulfilling, rich life when we actually go in that direction for our personality type.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that description of non-judgmental friend because when I first started reading about my personality type, I did feel like I was talking to a friend in the sense that they were reflecting things that I don't even tell my friends,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
would say things like very specific details. I think for me, I'm an eight. And one of the descriptors I have read that really resonated with me was like an eight will gladly give up a seat on the bus for anyone as long as you don't tell them to do it. And in my head, I thought, I've never said that to anyone. That's something I think, but would never want to admit out loud. And yet I'm reading these descriptors thinking, oh my gosh, this is like talking to someone who knows me inside and out. It's wild. It's really
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is that because like and I'll just kind of bring this up because you are an eight, is that eights are the passionate protectors. That's the name I use for them. And a, a lot of times, like let's say for men, it's like, oh, they're leaders, they go after things. And so they kind of get almost admired for it.
Mhm.
But with women, not so much,
Different.
right?
Yep.
And that's unfortunate. And so they'll be called lots of different names. And I'm like, okay, people have a visual or an emotional thought pattern about an eight that's actually not true.
Mhm.
A lot of people will experience the eight much more readily, or they're very aware and attuned to an eight when an eight is kind of in the average health range or the unhealthy
Mhm.
health range.
That's good.
And the reason why I say that, and so then they usually give out the names at that stage.
Yeah.
Now, so what I call the eight is a big diesel snowplow. A lot of
Mm.
people call them bulldozers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but bulldozers are just really plowing over things. But the eight is more of a big diesel snowplow. The whole goal for them is to get out there for those that can't do it for themselves
Mhm.
and see that there's that need and say, hey, everyone, I see it. Get behind me. I've got you.
Yeah.
That is what an eight is designed to do.
Mhm.
And when they do that, it's so effortless, and people just kind of are like riding the coattails of this
Yeah.
big diesel snowplow. Like this is amazing, but they're not feeling it. They're just
Mhm.
experiencing this new path that they get to go down.
Yeah.
But when an eight is less healthy, they have the same goal, like I got to plow a path, but they're a little less aware of who's around them or the intensity they bring. So then they start nicking cars on the side of the road, and those cars are like, dude, wait, what's up? Like, why are you doing that? And then the eight's like, well, I'm plowing the path. Why are you there? Like,
Yeah.
hello, figure it out, people.
So
And so
good.
there's a little bit less attunement, a little bit less empathy
Mhm.
when they're in that kind of average realm, but they still are trying to plow a path for others. They're just not doing it with the awareness that was really beneficial at the healthy level.
Yeah.
And then when they're unhealthy, they don't care.
I know.
And they are going to plow over anyone and everyone that they don't like,
Mhm.
that is not in their small inner circle or that they feel threatened by, and they really don't care. And so that's what, when obviously when someone experiences that, it's just like, okay, yeah, you have been plowed over.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think people, unfortunately, they experience eights in such a big way that they tend to draw out names that I think are very unfortunate. When if they really saw the gift of an eight, they would be like, dude, I want to be behind that
Yeah.
eight because
Yeah.
they've got my back. And so anyway, I just kind of wanted to throw that out there
You're the
because
best.
Yeah, because and also eights are some of the most tender on the Enneagram, but they
We're
put
so
up this really
sensitive.
big, strong,
Yeah.
like protective measure
Hmm.
because they don't want to experience vulnerability, being
Hmm.
blindsided or betrayed. But really inside, they're very tender. Am I
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that description so much. And I think when I read those descriptions, I've been on all levels and still fluctuate between different levels, right? But I
Hmm.
think what was so cool and what I appreciate about how you approach the Enneagram is you do present it in like these are the gifts God's given you, and here's how they
Yeah.
can flourish when we have this level of self-awareness. But yes, like all of it, yes. I feel so seen right now. And the vulnerability piece, that one was big for me because it's still hard for me to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Um, but it was really amazing to learn how people experience my own energy
Hmm.
and if I don't bring that vulnerability in, like how that can come across, that was
Yep.
game changing. And I think,
Yep.
and we're going to shift over and talk about like eating habits, but when I look at
Yep.
my eating patterns and like my history with my own body and food, I've been an eight all the way doing really bold, sometimes really destructive things with my body. But
Mhm.
then also on the other side, like once I figured things out, I'm really bold with that and trying to blaze a trail, right? And I think
Yes.
it's so wonderful to know that about myself because it helps me navigate. Like you said, when some of the obstacles come up in the road, we have to have those guardrails to
Yeah.
get us back. So I
Yeah.
do want to shift over and talk about how the Enneagram type actually affects our eating style. And
Yeah.
then I also want to dive into like how that the Enneagram type affects like what we're looking for and the rewards that we're looking for with food. Because I think that's probably the biggest place I see it show up is like, so for example, like someone who's a three, an achiever, and what word do you use for achiever? Remind me. It's not,
Well, close. We use the admirable achiever, so pretty
I
much the
like
same
that
thing.
better.
Hmm.
Yeah, I really appreciate the language you guys use. And I say you guys because it's you and your husband
Yeah.
that co-write quite a few of the books that are out there. But the admirable achiever, when I work with them, and like let's say a client wants to lose weight or has these like really like strong goals, but if I find they're rooted in diet culture or that maybe they're rooted in more of like a control mechanism or a insecurity,
Hmm.
it's hard to navigate them because their personality type is wanting that, right? They're
Yep.
seeking that, and yet I'm over here, and I think this is where I really started to pull in the Enneagram, going, I can't tell an admirable achiever, just don't lose weight and let's just enjoy the moment or try to blaze
Right.
a new path because that's speaking a different language for them.
Yep.
So let's talk about, and I don't know if we want to go through each one, but how do you, when you think of
Hmm.
like food and eating patterns, how do you think the Enneagram type affects eating styles?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to affect everything,
Mhm.
honestly. And that's why going back to my answer about why did I pick the Enneagram, is that it is the foundation to like everything.
Mhm.
So, why I parent the way I parent, uh, why I go to work the way I go to work, why I eat, drink, sleep. I mean, it all comes back to the core motivations of each of the nine Enneagram types. And so, if people want to see like a full kind of write up, a front and back page on the core motivations, all they have to do is go to yourenneagramcoach.com/core motivations. And it's just a free PDF download. So, because we're going to be kind of going through this pretty quickly, and I'm sure people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm missing it all, you know.
Right.
Um, but there are nine, like I said, nine basic Enneagram types. And the reason why I use the word basic is because there's many layers to the Enneagram, for instance. And we think of each of them being like a color, and not that they are a color, but when you look at the symbol, we put colors to them just because one, it helps to understand that it's like going into Sherman-Williams, and the nine we have is purple, not because they are purple, but that's just the color we have on our logo. But when you go in and you look at purple, there's a wide range of purples. You know,
Oh,
I'm
that's
not
good.
just exactly like all the other nines out there. Now we have the same core motivations,
Sure.
but I have a different story. I have different experiences, talents, just a lot of different things going on. So I'm not just like everyone else that's a type nine.
Hmm.
But again, we have the same core motivations. And the core motivations are what's going to be really helpful here in helping people to understand, again, why they have the relationship with their food and eating patterns that they do.
Okay.
So, that being said, the type one is the principled reformer.
Mhm.
And the type ones really fear being bad, evil, corruptible, and wrong. They desire to be good, virtuous, and right.
Mhm.
And so for them, it's going to be a lot about, am I right or am I wrong? Is
Mhm.
this correct
Yep.
or is this incorrect? And it has so much to do with ethics, morals, procedures. And we'll get to what you had talked about is the admirable achiever. This isn't about achieving per se. This is about doing the next right thing. Um, and so for the type ones, they have a loud berating inner critic that
Mhm.
is constantly pointing out what isn't correct or
Mhm.
right and demanding that the person or someone else, if it's someone else's responsibility, fixes it.
Mhm.
And that inner critic isn't going to let up until it is corrected. And so it's exhausting. So, what a lot of people don't understand about type ones is they're living with this constant onslaught of corrections, criticism, judgments aimed
Mhm.
at them that then spills over to other people. But then other people are like, oh my gosh, that hurts. But what they don't know is the type one has been dealing with that for a lot longer of a period of time, and it's
Right.
just overflowed into their relationships.
Right.
And so for the type ones, when they are going to be eating, if they are, so that what they'll usually do is they're going to have a plan, and it's the right plan, the correct plan, the healthy plan, and they're going to map it out and they are going to follow it step by step. And they're going to get really upset with family or coworkers that aren't willing to follow this correct plan with them.
Mhm.
So they're going to have resentment towards that. And then, really, when there's a breaking point, because every type can't honestly you keep up with all these things. When there's a breaking point, let's say the inner critic has really kind of gotten to them, they might then kind of either just be like, forget it, and have like a moment of just indulgence, or no one understands how hard I'm trying, and they get more emotional and melancholy. And that kind of goes into the structure of the Enneagram. So,
Mhm.
what I just described was a type one who also can take some of the unhealthy characteristics of the seven that they're connected to. It looks like a star. So, these are lines that
Yep.
are
Yep.
connected. And they're also connected to the type four who can be emotional and get melancholy. So, this type one who's like, I'm going to do this perfectly. And because we have it all laid out. And when it doesn't quite go that way, there are different ways that their type is going to exhibit their frustrations, their stress, their sadness, etc. That really the Enneagram maps out.
Yeah, and I want to park here for a second because I actually think I would say the bulk of folks listening to this podcast probably fall in this category because there's so much of the black or white thinking, there's a right way to eat and a wrong way to eat. So, how would
Mhm.
you suggest? Because so I teach this model called empowered eating, where we overlap like biofeedback, what your body says about food, nutrition science, and our value system. So, we really
Mhm.
try to create this food philosophy encompassing all three of those realms.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think this specific personality type has a really hard time with is that it's not black or white. There isn't
Right.
right or wrong. It's not, you can't eat this food. It's questions, right? Like, well, what's the circumstance or what's the goal of this? There's more of a discussion rather than a path lined out. And I have found this to be quite challenging, especially if they have a history of maybe a more severe disordered eating pattern like anorexia, or even binge eating disorder falls in that high, more perfectionistic like personality type. So
Yeah.
what would you suggest for someone that does fall in the type 1 category that is trying to learn to play more or trying to learn
Mhm.
to think more critically and outside of the black and white mentality?
Yeah.
Like, how do they do that while still understanding like this is kind of part of who they are?
Yeah. So, what's going to be actually pretty interesting is I really do suggest that people get my book, even though we're going to talk about my
Yeah,
newest book, which is Enneagram for Moms. But actually, this other book, my mug is in the
I love
way,
it.
it's called More Than Your Number. And the reason why I suggest that is because of what I'm actually doing, how I'm kind of nuancing each of the types. So, I just talked about type one, how they're connected to seven and four. And I talked about how when they're not in a healthy space, they draw some of the characteristics of those two types. But when they're healthy and they're growing, they'll actually also draw in some of the healthy attributes of the 7 and the 4 as well. And this is going to be perfect for the type 1 who's really rigid. The 7 is the entertaining optimist. They are
Hmm.
fun. There's no right or wrong or failure. There's new opportunities.
Hmm.
And so they bring a brightness, a lightness, a sense of childlikeness and joy
Hmm.
to everything. And so when the type 1 can incorporate that, that is going to help them to see more of a rainbow versus black and white.
That's
But the
awesome.
4 that they're connected to also can do that because the 4 is the introspective individualist. And the 4 has lots of ranges of emotions, but this is where we're going to tap into the creative side of the
Mm.
4,
Okay.
where here they're using that part of their 7 part of them. Because you know how we say there's a part of me that's like this, and there's a part of me that says that.
Yeah.
So the 7 is trying to be fun and playful and have lots of color, but the 4 loves to be unique and different and creative. And so when you use all of that together with someone who wants to do it right, it's a person that's going to let up the gas a little bit on the right and wrong
Hmm.
and try to play and
That's
experience.
cool.
So kind of getting, almost like I would even suggest for them to like get clay or something that they can mold and just try, but there's no right or wrong to it. It's just learning and play. And what does that feel like to not be in black and white all the time, and to take those steps in that direction and then eventually apply it to this part of their life?
That's cool. That's very cool. I'm already imagining having clay in my office
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
folks to start playing because yeah, that's great. So what you're saying is that even though these may be like their core motivations or their core drivers, there's still these abilities like when we're in a self-aware, healthy state to access different parts of our
Yeah.
personality. And I
And
think
the other thing,
everyone, oh, go ahead.
oh, well, I was going to say the other thing that just kind of came to my mind. So there's 4 core motivations, and we don't have time to like go through all 4, probably for every of the 9 types. But so we talked about the core fear of the 1 being evil, wrong, bad, corruptible. But they also desire to be good, virtuous, and right. And then they have a core weakness, and for them it is resentment. But their core longing, and this is really important, the core longing is the message your heart longs to hear and experience.
Mhm.
And for the type 1, it's to hear and experience, you are good. So
Mm,
that's what they're longing to hear. Now, it would be great if you had a friend, a coach, a mentor, someone in your life that can offer that to you on a regular basis. But honestly, the things that I've been learning at age 50 is that I have to be my own loving parent,
mm,
meaning I didn't get the things that I long for in the the depth or breadth that I needed and wanted, but I can give that to myself. So, what can a type 1 do to offer true affirmations about where they are good in life? It
mhm.
doesn't have to be perfect, but where are you good? And how can you bring those affirmations into your life? And that's going to start to soften the type 1's heart of
That's good.
rigidity into playfulness.
That's good. That's so good. And do you ever have them? Because the other thing is about type ones, they tend to give it out to other people, right? Like they continually give affirmation and love, and everybody else, it seems to, it's really their selves that they have that inner critic towards.
Yeah, usually there are 3 subtypes to every type. One of the subtypes is definitely focusing the criticism to themselves.
Mm,
The other one really feels that they've got it all figured out and want everyone to follow them. And then the last one is more of the activist. They
mm,
see the wrong in the world and they're trying to reform
mhm.
what's wrong and make it right.
Yeah,
But yes, I think once they start to learn the importance of affirmation and how getting it is so important, they will also become really good at giving it.
it's so good. That's so good. Okay, I want to dive into a few more of the types. We probably won't be able to cover all of them, but that's why you wrote so many books on this. So,
Right.
folks, if you're interested in more, we will definitely link all of your books in the show notes. I do want to talk about the admirable achiever because I think that is another one that shows up, especially in the weight loss realm and the body image world. Someone who really likes to present a certain way to the world. So, can you talk to us about this type and how this might affect our eating styles?
Yeah, so the people that are the admirable achievers, their core fear is to be failure, to be worthless, to not have high status and regard. So they're desiring to achieve, to be
Mhm.
successful, to have everyone see this admirable image, and then for people to actually admire them. And so they have this high status and high regard. So it's really about image. So for the three, it sounds at times it sounds similar to the one, but it is very different. The one is not about image. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't want to look
Sure.
thinner,
Mhm.
but it is more about ethics, morals, and procedures. Like it is the right thing to be X amount of weight. Okay.
Mhm.
Whereas the three, society says I need to look like whatever. And until I do, and I am going to feel shame
Mhm.
and I need to work hard towards that goal, whatever the goal is. Um, and the hard thing is that like I remember being a little girl, I'm not a three, but I remember being a little girl and thinking, oh, I need to look like Heidi Klum. I am 5'4" and of a stocky build. There is no way on God's green earth I could ever look like Heidi Klum, nor do I need to. But, as that's what society says, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to, let's say, lose weight to actually become something that I actually can't become. And so there's this habitual cycle of shame.
Mhm.
So for the three, they are the types that will shapeshift into looking, appearing, communicating with others in a way that is admirable for others to see.
Yeah.
So let's say that they can't lose the weight for whatever reason. They're definitely going to put on an image that they have a likable personality
Mhm.
um, to kind of skirt around that. But what you'll see with a lot of type threes when it comes into eating, threes are all about goals and achieving. So they're going to be like, okay, my goal is X,
Mhm.
whatever X
Mhm.
is. Now, this could be I'm going to exercise so much, I'm going to eat so many calories, I'm going to lose so much weight, whatever X is. They have the goal and then they work backwards and design their plan so that they'll achieve. And for them, they must achieve it. They're not going to come up with a goal if they don't think it's actually
Oh,
achievable.
they'll hit it. They will
They'll
hit
hit
it,
it. Yeah,
right?
at whatever cost.
Yep.
Um, and so they are constantly striving towards these goals and accomplishing these goals. Now, ones have the list of things that need to be done for
Yeah.
those other reasons. The three, it's about accomplishing the goals and tasks.
Yeah.
And and so for the three, they can really wear themselves out by making sure that they accomplish these goals, whether
Mhm.
someone knows about the goal or not. Um, and the exhaustion for the three can actually send them. So this kind of goes back into what I was kind of doing with the type one. It can send the type three to bring out some of the less healthy characteristics of the nine that they're connected to. And the nine is going to be like, it's hopeless, give it up. And so they're going to like get in front of the TV, turn on the Netflix, grab some popcorn or candy, and just be like kind of fatalistic, like
Yep.
it's all over, and this is probably just for the evening. And then the next day they're like, nope, that's failure. We're going to get back at it.
Yeah.
But that nine part of their heart can really get them into kind of an internal slothfulness
Mhm.
and kind of giving up resignation. But they also are going to go into the six mode where they're going to think worst case scenarios
Mhm.
and get really anxious about, I'm going to gain all this weight, or I'm going to look like this, or people are going to think this of me. And it's going to really stir the pot of the three's worry of their image and what people think.
Mhm. Yeah.
But the cool thing is as they grow, kind of like the one where they realize, you know what, goals can be great and having steps towards those goals are great. But again, it doesn't have to be an all or none thing.
Mhm.
What would it look like to learn to just be? So, this is where they're going to move towards the healthy part of the type nine that they have connected to them. And the nine is like, yeah, here I am. And people, they are a human being versus a human doing. So
Mhm.
the three is always striving to do. And the nine is like, I just want to be here with myself, be here with you, be here with nature, and just learn to be and enjoy life. But they also can move to the healthy part of six, where they're going to have a new sense of courage and loyalty for not just themselves, because the threes can be very focused on themselves and their goals, but it's now not just me, it's a we. So,
Mhm.
how does what they're doing, is it incorporating loyalty and faithfulness to those that they're responsible for, or
Oh.
have they been overdriven by the focus on themselves? And so, when they're healthy, they're going to again learn to be and it be more we than just me.
Yeah, wow. I think it's so cool unpacking the core motivation because it really does change how you experience things like any type of food changes or your body and how your body changes or doesn't change, and even exercise. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking, so my husband is a 9 and I'm an
Uh-huh.
8. And I think, aren't you married to an 8? And you're,
No, well, he's a counterphobic 6, which if anyone knows the Enneagram, is kind of a look-alike to 8. So on the
okay, okay.
outside, they kind of look like 8s, but he's not. But yeah,
Okay.
for the most part, we can
Okay.
go with it.
Yeah. So my husband, when we work out though, it's pretty interesting because he does what you just described there as the healthy 3, where he goes and he just like genuinely loves just being there. He loves every squat he does, and he can just exist in the workout without like a final destination or an outcome goal. Like he just vibes with whatever he's doing.
Yep.
And I, on the other hand, I'm like, what's the point? What are we doing? Like, when are we going to be done? When are we moving on to the next thing? And like, what is the productivity piece that we're doing
Yes.
here? And so
Yep.
it's funny because we clash when we work
Yep.
out because our core motivation for exercise is different.
Yeah.
And then I'm also a wing 7, which is play. And so if I'm not having fun, I'm like, I don't want to be here.
Exactly. And
Like
he's
this is
chilling. He's just kind of enjoying the ride.
totally.
So if you kind of think about, again, as an 8, you being a snowplow, you
Yeah,
know, once you turn on a snowplow, there has to be a goal for it, right? Like you're not just
totally.
turning on a snowplow for it just to kind of mosey down the road.
Right.
Like it is designed to go, to do, to accomplish.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so you're going to always be like, okay, what's needed? Where are we going? And how fast can I get it done? That's an 8.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think what's so important to recognize is like these different motivations change how we show up for these changes. And I think
Absolutely.
when I was first a dietitian, I came in with my 8 and wing 7, just so excited to like
Yeah.
change everyone's life and do it with sparkles and glitter. And I found really quickly that not everybody responds to that. Some people need a more tangible goal. Some people are really concerned about doing it right and don't have as much play. Some
Yep.
people don't want a goal and they just want to be in the moment. And I think that was so important for me to learn early on. And
Mhm.
it's something the Enneagram has been an incredible tool for me to learn more about, so that when I work with someone, I have to, it's like a constant reminder to myself
Yep.
because I am a snowplow. I tend to like
Yep.
just go, my tendency is to go back to that, but to constantly check myself and say, okay, this might be my intention or my agenda here, but somebody else might not experience this the same way. And
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay. I need to understand that, not try to get them on my
Yeah. So
snowplow.
what you're talking about is, and I tell people it's each of the Enneagram types has their own heart language, or like again,
Mm,
the way they see the world, interpret it, and then react to it.
okay.
And so, like, when you go overseas, people have their own language, and then there are different dialects. So, they call it the mother tongue, right? Like, how do they hear it? So, like, I'm from the Midwest. And so, if I hear someone from the deep, deep South, I know that we're a little different, right? Like,
Sure,
yeah, we
sure.
both speak English, but you're definitely from somewhere else, but especially if it's a whole different language. And so, what you're saying is really important for people because as a type 9, if you were my coach or my dietitian and you came at it like an 8 to me, like
Mhm.
everyone's at 8, I would definitely be like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, here's what's cool. So, my 9 would have been stubborn because I just want to chill and relax and just kind of like your husband, just kind of like go through the motions. But the the thing I need to recognize as a 9 is that can be a slippery slope
Mhm.
into slothfulness. Now, that's the core weakness of 9. Now, that it's not a physical laziness, though we do like our cozy comforts.
Yeah.
It is a slothfulness of a not knowing ourselves and
Mhm.
only focusing on others and merging to others' wants and desires. So I could be on a slippery slope of possibly just doing whatever you say to make you happy as a coach. And I'm miserable and
Mhm.
hating every second of it because I'm not being authentic to who I am. Or I can become really stubborn because if 9s don't want to do something, they're not going to do it. And so
No.
we can become really stubborn, or I can become really stubborn and be like, I'm out of here, and like just drop you as a coach and maybe even ghost you.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, as a dietitian, a coach, when you understand the Enneagram, this is how I teach our coaches when I train coaches, is for them to understand that there is a transference and a countertransference going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm coming into it transferring part of me to you. Like, I'm gonna be a certain way, hoping that I can garner, okay, is she think well of me? Like, are we okay? Are we on
Yeah.
even ground? Like, is there peace and harmony? And like, are we good? Um, but then you will have countertransference that might really annoy you. Like, hey, be you, stick up for yourself, let's go. And so you might challenge me. And if I don't stand up to that challenge, that can be really frustrating for a type 8. And so you might either double down or get frustrated, and then it just kind of becomes a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if we understand each other's core motivations and language, then you're like, oh, you're really great at just being with the flow, but a 9 can easily not focus on themselves. And so I need to be your encourager. So this is where 9 would move to a healthy part of 3, where it's like, we want you to develop, we want you to have goals,
Yeah, yeah.
but you also are the type that's not going to like go all out like a type 3, but we definitely want to see you moving in that direction.
Mhm.
And so like that can totally happen with an 8 who understands how a 9 actually goes about it.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much to it and understanding. Yeah, again, the core motivation and where they go and how to communicate that. And would you say your heart language? I
Yeah.
love that because you're right. We all experience it different, and that's been one of my biggest challenges in the food realm. Is because I do have this passion for helping people really make peace with their food and like feel really good and how they choose their food and how it fuels. I say fuels your adventure. Like whatever you're doing, like how is the food you're choosing fueling that? Sometimes it's literal, sometimes it's more fun and a part of an experience. But if we have that and that's my mission, the reality is like people don't hear that the same. And so I have this analogy called the donut victory, which would be really fun to do for an Enneagram type.
Yeah.
But I'll say like everybody's donut victory is different. So some people might walk into like a work break room and see a bunch of donuts and go, not having the donut is my victory. Some people, it might be having half the donut is a victory. For some people, it might be actually giving themselves permission to eat the donut and have as much as they want, not feel guilty would be the victory. For some people, it would be the spontaneity. There's like so many ways we
Yes.
could define a victory,
Yeah.
but that's going to be unique to each individual. And what I love about the Enneagram is it can help us kind of categorize our certain characteristics and personality quirks, maybe, and
Mhm.
better understand ourselves so that we can navigate it when we're trying to make a change.
Absolutely. I love that. That's really cool. Yeah, I think you could totally every Enneagram type could step back and go, okay, with this donut or pizza or said thing, what what is my natural strategy that's unhealthy,
Hmm.
and what would be a victory? What would be one
Ooh,
step away from that? So like you were saying, like the type 1 who is like, I must not eat it at all. Like don't even look at it, don't even smell it, like, and it's like, okay, what if the victory is that you keep it around and you're just kind of enjoying the smell, but you're not eating it. Or maybe it's, you're going to have a fourth of it, like
hmm.
what is, because we want the ones to, again, be childlike, to be gracious to themselves and
Yeah,
others, to experience the rainbow versus black and white. How you are interacting with a donut, how would that help you to accomplish that goal? And at the same time, tell yourself that you are good.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it brings it back down to that, like going back to that core fear and
Mhm.
reaffirming that that's
Yep,
not happening, right?
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I'm gonna have to play with that. I'm like thinking
Yeah.
through when we drop this podcast, I need to come up with, I'll run
Yeah,
it by you.
go to the back part of my book, Becoming Us, the one that
Okay.
I don't know, do you have this one more than your number?
I don't have that one. No, just
Okay.
becoming us.
So both of them have like the back of the book, and you probably know about this in Becoming Us, but in the back half of the book is these kind of cheat sheets on each of the
Okay.
type.
Hmm.
And so look back there because it's going to show you what are conflict activators for each of the types. And think of like food as a conflict activator, right?
Absolutely.
And then what are our behaviors? What's our communication style when we're healthy and less healthy? So, like, I know for me, like, if I'm really struggling with, we call it head trash, it could be limiting beliefs, false messages. When I'm struggling with a lot of head trash, my communication style is going to kind of mirror that, right? So, whether I'm healthy or unhealthy. And so the back half of the book is going to really show you that, even though it's a relationship book, really it's a relationship with food.
Yeah.
And so see if you can't pull nuggets out of the back half of the book to kind of help you when you are working with, you know, whatever type you're working with.
Right. Oh, that's good. I will absolutely pull that. Okay, so I could totally nerd out with you about this for hours and hours, but I do want to talk about your most recent book. That was when you and I connected back at MomCon a few weeks ago, which
Yes.
I had never been to MomCon.
I
Wow.
hadn't either. It was
What did
great.
you think?
Oh, I thought it was so much fun seeing all those moms out there. And, and some of them, like I'm a grandma now. You saw my grandson
Yeah.
before we hopped on the podcast, but um, some of them had their newborns with them, or their infants. And I'm like, you go. Like, I'm impressed. Like, I don't know if I would just be like, nope, not my season. I wouldn't even
Yeah.
been gone for it. So, I was really impressed with just the level of heart for their
Mhm.
families that they have. That was, I think, the biggest thing is just seeing their heart and wanting to learn and grow. So, yeah, it was really cool.
It was so cool. Yeah. For those of you who don't know what MomCon is this event. It happens all over the country, different spots. I had never been. My sister bought me a ticket last year and said, "You're coming." And I said, "Okay." That was my seven side that said, "Sure, I'll be there."
Yeah.
Tell me when. But it was 4,000 moms that came together to just worship and self-reflect and have some fun. And yeah, it was wild and wonderful all at the same time. But that's where you and I connected. And you were so kind. You were sharing your book, your most recent one, The Enneagram for Moms, which is just so cool. And I love how you describe it as an anchor. As I was reading through this, and I've got my types tabbed right here.
Yeah.
I think it truly is an anchor because we look at these personality core motivators, these traits, these tendencies that we have. And I talk about them with folks with food, right? It comes out in
Mhm.
how we interact with food, how we treat our body, but it's always a reflection of how we interact with life.
Yep.
Like going back to my when I primarily worked with eating disorders, I had this saying that like whatever disorder we have with food is what we have with life. So if I struggle with anorexia and I restrict on food, I restrict in life. And you can see that like in relationships, in risks, in fun, in creativity,
Yep.
like the restriction transcends everything. And so what's cool about this is it gives that anchor, but your new one is like really looking at our parenting style and how we can interact with
Mhm.
our children, which I was eating it up reading this. I loved it. It's so good.
Oh, great. Well, yeah, I mean, to me, it's just so important. So, like, everything that I write and teach on, again, always comes back to the core motivations. But the Enneagram is such a big, complex system.
Mhm.
I think the gift that I give to the world with the Enneagram is I make it simple and easy to understand while still being profoundly complex.
Mhm.
But the goal of the Enneagram for moms, which would be still be the same as like what we've been talking about, is understanding our heart condition.
Mhm.
And it's not, and my whole goal is to actually help people to discover themselves with astonishing clarity so they can break free from self-condemnation, fear, and shame by knowing themselves more fully and richly. And so like I said, the Enneagram is a non-judgmental friend,
Mhm.
but it's going to lay out for you why you get activated or triggered as a mom and get frustrated and
Mhm.
however you display your frustrations. Some moms bottle it up and some withdraw, someone are loud, it's just all over, it doesn't just different for different people, but we're highlighting again the why so
Mhm.
that you can be alert to when these things are happening and why they're happening. So then again, like the rumble strip, so you can get back on a healthier path. And so
Mhm.
we're wanting moms to be able to be aware and mindful to self-regulate their own emotions and thoughts so that when they're with their kids, which I don't know what mom doesn't get activated by their kids on
Yeah.
almost an every moment basis to some level. Um, but how can we self-regulate?
Hmm.
And because our kids are not most likely going to be our type, but even if they are our type, they're different and they're kids. They don't have some of the same maturity level and the life experience. But then the other thing is, we often are trying to make little mini versions of ourselves because we've seen the world through our lens, like it's the right way.
Yeah.
So I want
Yeah.
my kid to be just like me. And though we should be giving the best of who we are, we're not. So this is a phrase I just learned the other day, is that children are like treasures waiting to be discovered, not clay to be molded.
Mm.
And so it's not my job to make them into me.
Hmm.
It is my job to discover, to be curious of the treasure that they already have and impart some of the great qualities that my personality type has that I can give to them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I saw that you were going to say something from the book.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm just taking that in. I want, can you say that one more time about the
Yeah.
kiddos?
Yeah.
Um,
Children, or any of us really, are treasures to be discovered,
yeah.
not clay to be molded.
That's so good. That's, I'm just like thinking I want to write that because I do think every client I work with, I the empowered eating model, the whole reason it was created was because so like just a quick backstory. Um, there's a method of eating out there called intuitive eating, which is got a ton of research behind it. You probably heard of it. It's
Mhm.
amazing. But it overlays essentially biofeedback. They call it internal awareness and nutrition science, and it balances those two. But what I found is the intuitive eating movement had really become about pushing a certain value system on other people. So, for example, like in the intuitive eating model, they ask that you are not allowed to discuss weight loss. Like you have to forego that completely. And I kind of had this introspective like process where I was like, I don't feel right telling people that they have to forget that. Like, do I want to challenge the attachment to cultural expectations of what our body should and shouldn't look like? Absolutely. But do I want to tell someone who's in a different body size than me, is experiencing the world in a different way than me, that I refuse to talk to them about weight loss? No. Like, I'm
Yeah.
here to help mold them. So, anyways, that's why we pulled the values in. And because
Yeah.
then it actually opened the door to like I've worked with UFC fighters and they have to make weight. They get fined an insane amount of money if they don't make their weigh in. Like they'll
Wow.
get knocked ten to $20,000 right off the top if they don't make their weigh in.
Wow.
And that's absolutely tied to their values. And so anyways, it really created this whole new mentality of working with folks where I had to quit pushing my agenda with food and invite their thoughts and their values in. And in your case,
Yeah.
I love how you said that. And we're talking about kids, but I mean
Right. Well, and it's really for
everyone we
anyone. I
work with.
mean, we all want to be attuned to
Yeah.
and again discovered for the
Yeah.
treasure that we have.
So good.
In most of our life, we've kind of gotten the message the opposite of that now through the lens of our type. And to have someone to be curious, to
Yes.
really be curious and discover that your treasure, your uniqueness is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
I don't want moms to hear me saying, you just kind of like sit back and be curious and let
no.
things happen. No, that's not at all. But there's a big difference between being curious and coming alongside your kid and parenting, mentoring, helping to shape them, but not mold them into you
Mhm.
or to exactly the way you think it should be. Um, and I think that honors the child, but it also just honors the humanness of who we
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
and treating them as another human being versus this little child. And I think a lot of times kids also don't feel seen and valued for being, just like everyone else versus, oh,
Yeah.
you're just a little person. And
Yeah.
so giving them the value that they're due, I think is also really important. So the book is not about how to parent your children's
Mm-mm.
type.
Mm-mm.
It is about knowing your type, what sets you off and
Mm-hmm.
why. And then also, what is the healthy path that you can get on so that you can be a more full and rich and whole mom to any of the 9 types
Mm-hmm.
that might come your way as a mom.
Yeah, I think they're so wonderful. You have these aware mindfulness exercises at the end of each type. And I was just looking at some of them, and I think, if you're a mom and if you're struggling with food, this is so your jam. I'm looking at type 8 right now, and you said a mindfulness exercise is feeling sad or vulnerable or experiencing physical pain from being too hard on your body. So what can you do? Pay attention to your body. Are your fists clenched? Do you feel tightness? Just bringing about that awareness. And so, like mom, food, it's not mutually exclusive, right? It all
Right.
overlaps. And so I just think it's wonderful what you're doing. But if you're not a mom, really it sounds like starting with the More Than a Number book is going to
Yeah,
be,
I think that it would be a really great book. It what it's doing is it's helping you to understand that you're more than just your main type, even though the main type has the core
yeah,
motivations. And I'm going to go through that, and it's super important. But it also opens up the dialogue that you're more than just your main number, that you have parts of you that chime in.
yeah,
Like part of me wants to go to, like tonight is, as we're recording this, tonight is Halloween. Well, my husband loves to do it all up in Halloween. And as a 9, I'm like, I would rather just sit in the back porch and not do anything.
yeah.
But then there is a part of me that really enjoys it. So it's understanding how these parts of our heart that the Enneagram explains come online in healthy and unhealthy ways. And
So
this can
cool.
be totally utilized with your eating styles and patterns.
Absolutely. Well, so anyone that doesn't know your type, or maybe you need to refresh and see if things have changed. Do things change? Like, do you ever change types?
Well, your main type doesn't change. And we
Okay.
believe that you're born, at least, for me, I'm sure there's some teachers out there that might disagree, but most teachers believe you're born with your
You're born
type
with
and
it.
it doesn't
Okay.
change. But when you do read More Than Your Number, you're going to see how your type changes in the sense it's like going to Sherman-Williams and your color purple
Ah,
might
okay.
change its tone or, it might vary, but it's still purple. And so your main type doesn't change. But, when I use the different parts of me, if I'm using a lot of my 8, which is a wing, which is next to me, that's very different than if I'm using more of the type 1 wing.
Right.
They're very different personalities that are kind of coming online and shaping like or tinting the color of my
Yeah.
purple.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Well, so if anybody wants to know where they're at right now, you have a free assessment tool that is
Yep. Yep.
fantastic.
So they can go to yourenneagramcoach.com and we have a free assessment on there and some other really great free resources. And also they can go to our YouTube channel, which is Your Enneagram Coach. And we've got everything there is free. Lots of podcasts and like the Ennea Basics playlist is a great
Oh, that's
place to
cool.
start. You'll get to hear what is the Enneagram. They're all really short. And then you'll hear a little bit on each of the 9 types so that because we didn't get to go through all of them. So
Yeah.
if you go to the Ennea Basics playlist, that's a great place to start. And then on Instagram, it's Your Enneagram Coach. So basically, it's Your Enneagram Coach everywhere.
It's awesome. Well, we're going to definitely link everything in the show notes so folks don't have a hard time finding you. But I am so grateful for you, Beth. I always like to wrap it up with one question because it's the Feel
Yeah.
Her Awesome show. How do you like to feel your awesome? And that can be like literally with food or maybe more circumstantial. What do you like to do?
Uh, I think I like being with my family.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's such a 9 response. Like I
I was
just love
going to
chilling
say,
out in the living
yeah,
room with my family.
totally.
But it really does fill me up. So
Yeah.
I would say that for sure.
That's so great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Beth. I'm so excited to connect with you. And yeah,
Yeah.
this is so powerful. And I just encourage anyone listening to go take that assessment, learn more, and that's really going to start helping you better understand some of your own food patterns.
Thanks, Jess.
I'm so glad you were here today. Let's do yourself a favor and write down at least one actionable item that you can take away from today's episode to start fueling your awesome. Here on the show, we scratch the surface of empowered eating, but if you're looking to dive in deeper, I would love to help you out with that. Head over to jessbrownrd.com. You can check out my free Empowered Eating Workshop. You can take a free quiz to see if your eating style aligns with your values, or better yet, book a discovery call with me to learn more about how to further your empowered eating journey. I cannot wait to be in your ear again, cheering you on along the way. Until then, cheers and happy eating.